This episode of the Beauty Industry Podcast was brought to you by Circuit Skin Australia, making skincare smarter for almost 2 decades. Hello and welcome to the Beauty Industry Podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Reid. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauty Industry. Today, my guest is Angeli Shaw from the Bliss Coach. Angeli is a certified consciousness coach, creatrix, transformologist, and head talk strategist. Try saying that 3 times fast. After spending years refining her skills, Angeli describes herself as a holistic empowerment coach, focusing on not just one, but all aspects of life to help people achieve their bliss, whatever that may be. Prior to launching the Bliss Coach, Angeli has spent over 20 years as a hairstylist, 10 of those owning her own salon. Her expertise also extends from educator to mentor, and she prides herself on inspiring others through a soulful approach and growth mindset. Today, Angeli and I share lots of stories about our own breakthroughs after moments of reflection. Today, the lessons that life has taught us, the blessings that have come from sticky situations, and most of all, why our minds need to be able to shift, adapt, and change in the face of growth and rebirth. From the Bliss Coach, today we welcome Angeli.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you because I have seen you, as I'm sure many of our guests have, across different industry events and different social media groups and platforms. And when we finally connected, I was like, yes, this is a conversation that our community needs to tap into, especially during a time like we're all going through at the moment. There's lots of shifts and changes and challenges and breakthroughs. So yeah, I feel like you're the perfect person for that.
Amazing.
So tell me, you are a hairdresser by trade. How did you first enter into the hair and beauty industry?
So it's actually a really interesting journey because as a child, I never showed any interest in hairdressing or beauty. I was actually quite a tomboy as I was growing up, and my parents were very practical people. So I was one of those little girls that had the short haircut because it was practical to maintain. So I didn't grow up with ponytails or ribbons. And it wasn't until I kind of, went into high school and the questions started being asked, what do you want to do after high school? What career path do you want to do? And so originally, and a lot of people laugh when I say this, but originally I actually wanted to be either a psychologist or a politician.
Oh.
I was very passionate about debating in high school, so that's where the kind of political motivation came from. But in regards to psychology as well, I've always had this natural kind of nature to want to help people, and so it made sense to pick something like psychology. But I didn't really like school. So I remembered speaking to my father and I said, "Oh, Dad, how can I become a psychologist or a politician if I don't like school? I don't want to go to university. How do I do this?" And it was actually my father that said, "Well, you're a people person. You're a natural born leader. You love helping people. Have you thought about hairdressing?" And I think I was about 14, 15 when my dad said that. And it got me thinking. I thought, well, yeah, hair's pretty cool and I'll get to socialize and talk to people. And I mean, I obviously learnt as my journey went along into hairdressing, there's a lot more to it than that. But that was kind of, the starting point where I started to show a bit of interest. By then, my parents let me grow my hair. So I was definitely experimenting and doing things. And the more that I looked into the industry, and I guess the potential beyond just qualifying as a hairdresser. So I was very ambitious. So I said to myself that if I do become a hairdresser, that I want to own my own salon. So I kind of already had a future plan on where I wanted to go with that career path. And then, yeah, I did work experience at a couple of salons just to make sure that, you know, it was something that I would enjoy. And from day one, I absolutely loved it. So then I started studying hair. I left school early and I started studying hairdressing. And yeah, I didn't look back. And it's been almost 20 years, coming up 20 years that I've been doing hair or been in the industry. So
Ah, fantastic. How funny that you wanted to be a psychologist or a politician. For me, it was like the complete polar opposites as well. It was lawyer or an artist. And I hated school as well. Isn't that so funny? I think, you know,
yeah.
when you're little, you just think about these kind of big roles that you hear like your parents' friends having, or, you know, these other, you just don't know what kind of roles you can create. But actually, quite interesting for you because you wanted to be a psychologist. And I guess in many ways, what you're doing now is very similar and very aligned to that. So you've almost done a 360 loop. But I want to find out that middle part. How did you go from hair into kind of career coaching and conscious coaching area?
Well, I guess that's the thing. Even, you know, when I did decide to go down the hairdressing part, like I certainly didn't lose my passion for wanting to help people. And that's something, you know, I've always continued to do on a personal basis. And so I think everyone, you know, can agree, not just hairdressers, but beauticians, you know, we meet clients and we converse with them, and, you know, we build up these relationships and this rapport. And it's unbelievable sometimes, you know, the things that your clientele will actually share with you because they trust you and they're so comfortable. And so, you know, a lot of people say that like hairdressers and beauticians are kind of unofficial counselors or psychologists anyway, because we tend to talk things through with our clientele. So that's something I guess I continue to do through my career. But transitioning from being a hairdresser and a salon owner into the coaching business, well, you know, that wasn't something that I imagined was going to happen at the start of my hairdressing career. But for me, hairdressing did start to take a physical toll on me. So as much as I loved it, I was starting to get all those aches and pains, and, you know, certain things were happening to my body. And it wasn't until probably a good 3 years of investigating, I got told that I was hypermobile, which basically means my ligaments bend way further than what they naturally should. And it just made all my previous injuries and my aches and pains make sense, because with the repetitive actions of a hairdresser, you know, blow drying and stuff, I had quite severe inflammation in my right arm, and that was one of my blow drying arms. So I was just bending my limbs backwards and forwards. And you know, it's not something that can be cured. It's just, it's not as horrible as it sounds, but it's genetic. So it's something that I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. And I thought to myself, wow, if I can't be on the tools, you know, forever anymore or full time, what would I do if this career was taken away from me? And I sat with it for a bit. And again, the whole concept of helping people kept coming in. Coaching wasn't something that I originally was thinking of doing. I actually did divert back to psychology, but then that reminder of how much I disliked school kicked in. And so I thought, no, there's got to be another way. And I think I discussed this with you when we first spoke, but I really do believe in the power of social media and the fact that I do believe our devices listen to us. And so all these sort of modalities and coaching courses and groups started popping up in my feed. And I guess that's where I went down the rabbit hole of the whole coaching industry. And it wasn't until I came across consciousness coaching that I started to really narrow down and niche exactly what it is that I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I cut my hours back on the floor. And as I cut my hours back on the floor and ran my business, I started to ramp up in the coaching space. And now that's what I do full time.
Amazing. I love hearing that transition and that kind of graduality of going from one space to another, because I think often, and I think this is a bit of a women and female thing as well, is that we have this idea and we get all bright-eyed, bushy tail, and we get the what I call the Dory syndrome from Finding Nemo, and we get way too excited and we just want to jump in and quit our job today and then go start this big coaching business. And it's like, okay, how are you going to get clients? How are you going to pay your bills? What about your career that you've just had? So I really like that you had quite a fluid transition and you slowed down one while you picked up the other, which makes a lot of sense, you know, to anybody hearing that. But sometimes when we do things in our life, we just want to move from A to Z yesterday, you know.
Yeah. Oh, and look, I think as well, like from a business owner's perspective, I mean, owning a salon for over 10 years, I certainly learn a lot about business. And when I look back to the beginning of my journey as a salon owner, you know, back then it was 2008. It was literally the global financial crisis had actually just started that year. And, you know, I didn't have a business plan. I actually threw myself into owning a business. And I remembered my first day in the salon, I actually just sat behind the reception desk and smiled for about 8 hours. I did one client that day, but, you know, I had absolutely no plan. And so, you know, having that over 10 years experience of owning a business and then transitioning into another business, I was able to, I guess, take that experience and not just throw myself into coaching and sit and wait to get clients. I was actually able to come up with a plan and able to move forward and grow the business quite quickly, which was really good.
Yeah, brilliant. Very practical.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me about coaching, because I know coaching is kind of like the word sales, right? It can be known as to be very sticky, a little bit greasy sometimes. What am I going to get sold? Here's another coach. But you said before consciousness coaching. So, what's the difference between regular coach and then consciousness coaching?
Well, in regards to consciousness coaching, I mean, when we think of the word consciousness, straight away it pulls us to our minds and our thoughts. And, you know, when it comes to our thoughts, basically, and the way we show up in the world and put ourselves out there, whilst a lot of the actions that we take and the words that we speak are conscious, there's so many things that we do on an unconscious level. And those things, you know, they become ingrained in us and just habits of things that we do. So the reason why I've found consciousness coaching to be so amazing with, you know, working with a lot of my clients is that, you know, this, especially now with everything that's going on, you know, we're all reacting and responding in different ways to what we hear, what we read, to, you know, our own personal situations. And getting a better understanding of why we're responding the way we do and why we act like we do, and even all those trigger emotions that come up. Once you create an awareness around that, that's where I believe the magic happens, so you can start making change. An example that would be very applicable to the hair and beauty industry would be like price increases, for example. You know, a lot of people, you know, get so worked up and fearful about the concept of putting their prices up. And, you know, I've worked with quite a few people that they say out loud, you know, but I know my services are worth it and I'm highly trained and, you know, I deserve to put my prices up, but, and then all this other stuff comes through. So working with those people and getting them to understand where those thought patterns are coming from, why they're doing it, and then showing them the tools to be able to flip that perspective. It's just been amazing watching people grow from that, and then they can apply those skills as well into other aspects of their life as well that they're struggling with.
Yeah, and I really love what you're saying there about, you know, the difference between a conscious thought is something that we know, you know, we can hear in our own head those conscious thoughts, but the unconscious thoughts, it's like that iceberg under the water. There's so much there that can happen in a split second. We don't even know that we're thinking it.
Yeah.
And I actually had a very similar experience, what you're talking about, bringing awareness to the unconscious thought. And I'll tell this story just for anyone to get a bit of context. So I was sending off a large invoice to a client. It was $10,000. And before I pushed the button send, I just couldn't push it. And I was like, why can't I push this button, send, and exactly as you're saying there, I know my value, I know my services are worth it, but I was sitting there with my hand on the mouse and the button over send button, and I couldn't do it. And I went downstairs, got some chocolate, made a tea, had a tea, come back up, and I was like, okay, Tamara, just push the damn button. And I pushed the button, turned the computer off, and I was like, I don't want to know what happens next, And so I had to ask myself, like, why are you like this, Tamara? Why did you just procrastinate? Why couldn't you push the button? What's sitting behind there? But until you're conscious and until you know what you're thinking, you don't know that it's even there.
100%, 100%. It just makes such a, it just makes such a huge difference to the way people do show up every day. And even for myself, when I did start doing my training in consciousness coaching, I immediately started applying a lot of the tools that I was learning in my team training in salon. And it really was just so rewarding to see, the growth from a mindset point of view in my team. And I mean, everyone's at different stages, so not everyone is even always ready, I guess, to hear those things, but especially for the ones that are, like, it's just magic watching them have those aha moments and light bulb moments and go, oh my God, is that why I do that? And then being able to consciously be able to change that behavior or take a different action or step to have a better or different outcome.
After the break, Angeli and I get deep on mindset, what being conscious can do for your life and your business, and how we can help the people around us at home and at work for the better. But first, a word from today's beauty partner. Community, if you are searching for a skincare brand to stock in your space, then you should look no further than Circuit Skin. The original skincare brand is back in Australia, bigger and better than ever before. With over 20 years of research and development, happy clients treating all concerns through ingredients which are considered through their earth-aware conscious ethics, Circuit Skin is a brand your retail offering and treatment menu is going to love. Promoting professional prescriptions by skincare specialists rather than selling online, Circuit Skin is the perfect combination of results meets relaxation in their signature eye-catching yet eco-friendly packaging. To find out more about why so many therapists and clients are loving the return of Circuit Skin via distribution of InMed Aesthetics, visit www.circuitskin, that's circuit with an s.com.au to take a look for yourself. Thank you so much to the team at InMed Aesthetics for making today's episode possible. And now back to Angeli. Now, we often hear the word mindset, and you mentioned it there as well. And I think, it's almost a bit of a buzzword, clickbaity word these days. But what actually is mindset? Is it just what we think, or is it how we think in a certain situation? What is that?
Oh, look, mindset's definitely to do with your thoughts or your, I guess your headspace. In regards to mindset, it is one of those buzzwords that, gets thrown around. And sometimes I find, you say the word mindset to someone and straight away you can already see their brain sort of going into overdrive with everything they've already heard about it. But, it's just such an important factor in everyone's lives, not just professionally, but personally as well, because where you're at in your headspace determines the words that you say, the actions that you take, the people that you choose to be around, or the people that you choose to remove from your space. And all of those things lead off in different directions. So if you're in a closed mindset or an unhealthy mindset, those things are going to branch out into unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy conversations, unhealthy decisions. And, that's not something that we want to be doing. Yeah.
Completely. I resonate with that so much because, and I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but in about 2013, I just took over a new team. I'd come back from the cruise ships. I actually had cervical cancer at the time. My partner had broke up with me. My family wasn't there because I was just pushing everyone away. And I guess that's what you're talking about, that kind of negative mindset. And I thought, I'm always one to leave my feelings at the door and I'll never take this into work. And of course, that didn't happen. I took it into work, and not that anyone knew that anything was going on at home, but I was just negative and I was just rude and I wasn't showing up as my best self. Is that kind of how you mean? Like, even though, we've got personal and we've got professional, whether we like or we choose to show up as that in our business life, that can just happen without us even thinking about it.
Oh, look, it can definitely happen. I mean, when I had my salon and I was being coached, I was I was taught to basically leave my shit at the door, and put my game face on, step into the salon, show up as the best version of myself. And, I actually got really, really good at it. I used to laugh because I could literally have a fight with my partner on the phone, 5 seconds before I walked through the door, like hang up on him and be absolutely raging. And I would just take a big deep breath, leave it, and I'd walk in and I'd be able to show up to work. But, unfortunately, not everyone is able to do that. And what I found, for myself was, even though I was really good at putting that game face on the insides, I was screaming. It was hard work. You'd be talking to your staff, you'd be, servicing your clients, and then you'd go to the bathroom and you'd have that tiny little break where no one was around, and it would flood back in. And then you'd have to put your game face back on, and then you'd step out of the bathroom. And I just found it so exhausting, not just mentally, but physically, doing that all the time. So I guess that's another reason too why this whole consciousness coaching modality really appealed to me, because I thought there's got to be a better way to basically get through your day. Like, the reality of life is that, shitty things are going to happen and we're always going to have challenges thrown our way. But if we can, again, learn where our reactions and responses are coming from, and, learn to flip our perspective on situations, then that whole internal battle that you do go through ends up, I guess, becoming, a little bit milder and just not so extreme. So, you don't feel like you're exhausting yourself trying to show up and be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, completely. And I
Yeah.
feel like, especially in our industry, hair or beauty, we're generally surrounded by teams and by a lot of people, and even sometimes clients. And sometimes these people show up with a negative mindset, and you can just see that they're just always negative, grumpy pants are on. Is there a way that we can help these people? Obviously, we're not psychologists. We don't want to go, what happened in your childhood that made you so negative? But, is there anything that we can do to kind of help get them in a more positive mindset?
I guess when it comes to staff, at the end of the day, they don't wake up in the morning and say to themselves, you know what, I'm going to go into work today and I'm going to make it horrible for everyone to be around me, or I'm going to purposely make it just a really difficult day to work as a team. They definitely don't do that. But again, I think when it comes to staff, and I can go backwards even to when I'm a staff member, sometimes the simple act of just being heard, I find, makes, such a difference. So it's one thing to have your team culture and, I guess your expectations laid out for your staff on how they show up every day. But if they know that they're being heard, or that, they can open up and say, hey, look, I'm having a really rough day because of X, Y, and Z, and they know that their employer or their manager or their team, are going to hear them, then already I think that gives them a bit more comfort in knowing that they're feeling supported. So communication is definitely the key, because it can be frustrating as a business owner. You want what's best for your team, you want what's best for your business, you want what's best for your clients, but there's so many variables that are just out of your control. And I also find too that, staff members can rock up with a certain energy, but if you respond back in a certain way, and it doesn't even have to be words, it can just be your actions or your body language, they can feel it too. And then it has an on-flow effect on the rest of the team. And the thing is, even clients can start to feel it as well.
Completely,
Yeah.
completely. I feel like today I'm sharing all my stories, but you're just bringing up so much for me that I'm remembering.
I'll have to think if I have some stories to share as well.
Well, I remember this time I was an educator, and I walked into a business and we were going to do, a VIP event for the day. And one of the therapists walked in, head down, just you can tell it was a mood, and just walked past reception, just kind of grunted hello and went and put her stuff in the back. And me coming into the business, I was like, is this normal? I don't know what's going on here. And I looked at the business owner and I said, oh, what's going on there? And she said, oh, nothing. She's just always moody. It's just a problem. She'll sort herself out. And I thought, okay. And I went into the back and I said, is everything good? Are you ready for today? And then she was just like, no, I'm not ready. And just completely unloaded, started tearing up, shared all this emotional stuff. And she was like, do you know what? No one here has ever asked me like how I am. They just think that I'm always so angry, and I'm not, but they just don't ask. We don't have time between clients to share how we feel. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Like, nobody really wakes up choosing to be on the wrong side of the bed, but sometimes people do just need a chat, and we chat to our clients all day long. It makes sense to have that same conversation with our team.
Yeah, definitely 100%.
Yeah. So I know, especially in group situations, again, I'm going to bring it back to, but sometimes that person who is a little bit negative, or, say it's not just one day that they've rolled on the wrong side of the bed, it's like a constant negative, or they're just like a foofer, they're constantly bringing down the energy. That can sometimes permeate, throughout the rest of the team. And I often call that like the moldy fruit bowl. It's like this one peach is moldy. All of a sudden, all your fruit in the fruit bowl is moldy. You got to chuck out your whole team and get a whole new fruit bowl, right? So how can we kind of make sure that people who are in a negative mindset or carry around a negative energy don't penetrate our field, make sure that we are still aligned to our own thoughts and values and beliefs, and they don't rub off on us?
Well, I guess one thing that's really important to be aware of as well as a leader, a leader or a salon owner, is that sometimes we can get so fixated and focused on that one staff member that, isn't giving 100% or, showing up quite negatively. And so what ends up happening is those other people that are showing up, in a growth mindset as such, or in a good headspace, they're the ones that end up actually getting neglected. And so what can happen is, your staff members that are, showing up, giving 100%, really giving it their all, can start to feel, I guess, underappreciated, or, they feel a little bit forgotten about. So I find that, team sessions or team building kind of exercises, work really, really well, because, if you're looking after your entire team and there is that one sort of person that's, I guess, starting to drag things down, boosting morale across the team, bringing everyone together, getting them to interact, and really listening to what they have to say, what brings them joy, what sparks them. So it's not about you going, well, this is what we're going to do, we're doing it this way and that's it, really listening, because everyone responds so differently and there's so many different personalities. And it's definitely not an easy job as a salon owner, but we also can't be too hard on ourselves, because it's a journey, and it's a constant journey for as long as you are a salon owner.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest roles, as a leader in business. It's your role to manage and cultivate a positive culture in the
Yeah.
business, and I constantly talk about community and culture and connection. And I think sometimes as business owners, especially when we're in a trade, when we're in a swapping time for money service industry, it's difficult because our head's in the treatment room, our head's with our clients, but we need to step back and go, what am I doing for the team, and not always expecting something. And I've hear this language from a lot of business owners. Oh, well, what are they doing for me? They should just be happy that I've given them a job. And it's like, well, if they weren't servicing the clients, you wouldn't have a business, So I always believe it's a seesaw, it needs to be that perfect balance. But culture is the biggest thing. And we know that people don't leave businesses, people leave people.
Yeah.
So, and I want to check in with anyone on the podcast here. If you have a high staff turnover, maybe it's time to look internally. What are we doing? Maybe we're the person with the negative mindset, because that's certainly what happened when I had a high staff turnover. I had the negative mindset, until I was able to shift that and bring that into consciousness. Then I kept my 16 staff for 3 years. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
definitely. And I mean, you know, for the salon owners out there that are listening, you know, this isn't you know, to make you feel bad trying to recognize those sort of behaviors. Like, recognizing those things alone, that is a sign of growth. You know, that's the
Huge.
start of a shift or a change. I think, you know, salon owners sometimes go, oh no, you know, I have to be perfect and all this. And it's like, no, like searching, I say to a lot of people that trying to be perfect is just, to me, it's just, how long's a piece of string? You know,
Yeah.
everyone's idea of perfect is different. You know, we should be striving more for wholeness as opposed to perfection.
Yes, wholeness over perfection. I really, really like that. I want to ask your thoughts on manifestation, because sometimes people are like, this is woo woo crystals, smudge sticks. I don't get it. But can we actually think about something so much that it becomes a reality?
I strongly believe so. So, yes, like what you said about manifestation, you know, some people have this preconceived idea that, yeah, it is crystals and tarot cards and sitting under the full moon and walking barefoot on the grass to ground yourself. And I mean, for some people, that is what it is. But I always refer to the topic of energy, and that, you know, everything is energy. So, not just us as people, but, you know, trees, plants, animals, like everything around us, the earth has its own frequency, you know, and so do all of we. So when it comes to manifestation, it's not just as simple as, oh, I'm going to think about this and this is going to happen. But, you know, people need to really consider what they're putting out there into the world. You know, I'll use the example of, I guess, finding staff. And, you know, I'm not at all saying it's easy. You just need to manifest it. But, you know, finding staff members, when people, I guess, allow their struggles to find staff, you know, really start to get to them, it does affect the energy that they're starting to put out there. And at the moment, with all of us predominantly being connected through social media, you know, I've become a great observer of what I consider the energy that a lot of people are putting out there. And I think that, you know, people need to become more aware and conscious of the energies that they're putting out there, and what they're allowing in. So what they're exposing themselves to, the conversations that they're having. I find it interesting when someone does post in a group or a forum online, I guess, asking for help on a situation. So they might say that they're having an issue with rebooking, and, you know, what does everyone else do? And sadly, I find that majority of the responses on those posts actually aren't very helpful. It's more people just going, oh yeah, I'm going through that too. So when you look at something like that post, I look at it and I think, wow, that's a really low vibing post, because this person, you know, has opened up and basically said, help me. And rather than everyone helping, they've just jumped in and gone, oh, but me too. You know, so the way, and, you know, it will change as we all get more physical, but the way that you're choosing to show up and contribute to the world does play a part in what you bring into your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. And on that topic of groups, obviously, our group is such a huge beast these days. And I love watching, as you said, what people comment. And it's interesting when everyone's being really positive and then one person comes in and drags it all down. And you just think, oh, I certainly think, like, what happened to you today? Or what made you, especially because on social media you really have to think, because you're typing. It's not as if it's foot and mouth disease and you accidentally just say it in a conversation, then you go, oops, that slipped out, word vomit, I shouldn't have said that. Like, on social media you really have to think about what you're saying because you're typing it. And I do find that quite interesting in how they show up, especially on a public platform. I mean, we've got 6,000 people in there now.
Yeah.
If you put those 6,000 people in a room, would you still say the same thing, or would you still show up the same way? Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So
I actually
interesting.
came across a post earlier where someone had shared a negative review review from a client, and it didn't take long, but I sat back and watched the post, and everyone just started sharing all their negative reviews, and I thought, oh gosh. Rather than sharing that, maybe share an idea on how they can get some positive reviews, or someone can share an experience they had where they might have contacted or incentivized their clients to leave an honest and kind review on their page. So putting forward solutions rather than, as I said, oh yeah, me too, or almost having a bit of a competition on who's had it worse. That's definitely not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, completely agree. And even for me, as somebody who receives a lot of feedback, I mean, we obviously have the podcast, we've got the group, we've got a digital magazine, we've got events. Like at any given stage, people can come into the DMs, and it's always me, and they'll go, this is my feedback on this. But it's quite interesting in how people give feedback, because sometimes people go, and I've had this happen before, I didn't like that person who you had speak on the panel because of these reasons.
Okay.
And then I think, okay. And so I say, okay, so you didn't like her because of X, Y, and Z. Who would you like to see? So instead of kind of bashing the person who was on the panel or whatever that may look like, put forward a solution, and especially if you want to be on that panel, hence why you're coming into the DMs being a bit cheeky, well then put yourself forward and say why you deserve, or who else deserves to be. I find that in terms of that feedback always really interesting as well. And that's the same, it goes for our teams as well. Instead of saying you didn't do this right, well, what could they do to make it right next time?
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, when people do put posts out there like that, I believe it's because there's just something missing from in here. So, if you do share a post where you've gotten a negative review, that's not at all to dismiss your feelings about it, in the sense that of course it's going to hurt. It's going to feel personal because it's your business. But, by putting a post out there like that, I'd like people to start to question why. Like, why did I put that out there in that Facebook group? What is it that I was seeking to get? Was it, did I want people to say that person was wrong? Did I want people to say, oh, that person's an idiot, don't worry about them? I think it can come from a really empty place when people post those things. And that's where I always tell people to go back to themselves, and basically fill their cup first, instead of seeking other people to fill their cup for them.
Yes. And it's interesting when we ask the question why to ourselves, why did I do that? Sometimes our mind can rationalize, even if it's a shitty thing that we've done. We can go, oh, well, because of her, or because of him, or because she said this, or whatever. But when I ask myself, for what purpose did you do that, Tamara? And then I go, oh, what was the purpose? I don't know what the purpose was, or maybe the purpose actually wasn't so great.
Sometimes that's what it takes. Just stopping and asking yourself the question. And people, need to realize that you do actually have those answers within, but you got to start looking for them. And in my 36 years on this planet, there's plenty of things that I've done and that I still do where I go, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that, Angeli? And, that's where, as I said, I think the magic happens and the growth happens, because, you're starting to acknowledge those thoughts and bring them up and work them out and go, okay, well, now that I understand why I do that, now I can consciously make a decision to change it and do something else.
Yes, but we also have to have the space out of our business and away from all the craziness in the world to be able to sit there and reflect and think about why we do things.
Yeah, and I think, with everyone at some point being in some form of restriction or lockdown, it's been put out there, now's the time to work on your business, and now's, do this and look at your client spend and your numbers, review your price list. And yes, 100%. You should be doing that, but don't forget about yourself as well. Like, it's, yes, your business is very important, and you certainly shouldn't neglect it if you have been shut down for a while, or you still are. But, it's a perfect time as well to work on yourself, fill your cup and sort of go, okay, I really want to start having a look into into why I do this and try to work out, what I can do to change it or flip my perspective. So it's a balancing act.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. As somebody who works with lots of women, lots of business owners, especially in the hair and beauty industry, so you completely get it. I'm interested in what the biggest lesson you've learnt, you found in being a business coach and dealing with all of these thoughts and triggers and challenges and women and business and all of the things that come up in between.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and this has been over years and years and years, is that you can't save the world.
Mm.
I've said it, that I love to help people, and one thing, and I think it was a pretty hard lesson, tough lesson for me to learn, but I'm glad that I did learn it. Is that you can't save the world, you can't help everyone. You can be there and you can do what you think is the right thing and have the right intentions, but just not everyone's ready to be saved. And I experienced that with my team. Like, every single person that worked for me is just wonderful in their own way. But, some, some were, open to learning and growing and I guess changing things or bettering things for themselves, and some weren't. And I learned that that's okay, because everyone's at a completely different stage in their, personal and professional development. And so once I, came to that acceptance that I can't help everyone, I can't fix everyone, that immediately just took like a huge pressure off me as well, because I put so much pressure on myself to make sure that everyone was happy and everyone was healthy and that they weren't anxious and they weren't stressed out. But little did I realize at the time that I was actually getting anxious and stressing myself out. So that was a huge lesson for me, huge.
Yeah, I really love that. And I think we try and do that in so many different elements, like, oh, let's change our husband, let's change our kids, let's change, our clients,
Yeah.
the team that we work with. Like, we often do want to do so many things and change and help. And, I think sometimes maybe we're the people that need the most help in that setting. I want to ask you, because I'm sure I'm going to get this question a lot in the DMs. What does a typical kind of session with you as a coach look like? I mean, obviously you're in Melbourne, we're in lockdown. I'm sure you've got some kind of virtual thing happening now, as does the rest of the world.
Zoom is my best friend. Well, Zoom is everyone's best friend at the moment. So I am currently doing all my sessions through Zoom. Sometimes phone call. There are some people that, they're not comfortable being on camera, and I'm totally fine with that. So yeah, it's either on the phone or through Zoom at the moment. And, in regards to a typical session, I mean, I guess initially when I speak to someone, it's working out, like, why did you reach out to me? What is it that was on your mind when you came across, myself and my services and what I do? And so it's really just an opportunity for that person to just go for it and just talk about themselves and their life and their business. So I normally spend our first interaction listening, and the art of active listening, and that's something that's very important, being a business owner. But the art of active listening, the amount of times people will say something unconsciously, even say it 3 or 4 times, a certain word keeps popping up and they've just got no idea. And so at the end of it, when I can turn around and say, well, you've actually said, this like 4 times in our conversation, have you actually thought about, X, Y, and Z? And just when it is on Zoom, just seeing them go, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was doing that. That's where I'm like, right, we're going to do some amazing things together.
Yeah, so special. I always think that when people say, like, I don't normally do this, but, and then they say that 3 or 4 times, then in my head too, I'm going, I think you do actually do this.
Yeah,
It's quite
yeah,
interesting, isn't it?
yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'll be sure to link all of your details in our show notes so that if anyone wants to pop over and have a little connection call and meet with you and have some breakthroughs and, be conscious of their thoughts and their feelings and their actions and everything that's going on, they can do so. But thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me today. It's been the most special.
No, thank you. It's been absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for having me.
Isn't Angeli just the sweetest? And if that episode didn't get your mind ticking away, then I don't know what will. This year has been the most crazy, as we all know, but one thing we can thank from the madness is the stillness and reflection that has come from the downtime that we have been so fortunate enough to have. As Angeli mentioned, what we say in our thoughts, only we can hear, and those thoughts matter in every single way we show up in our lives. So it's the most imperative that we appreciate and understand how we speak to ourselves, because it can be a mess in there at the best of both times. To share how and where you're listening, you can do so by tagging us on the gram over at The Bliss Coach, myself at Tamara Reed Beauté, and us, of course, at Beauté Industry. If you're new here, hello and welcome. Feel free to hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app if you've enjoyed today's conversation, as that will help keep you on top of all of the new episodes that we are dropping weekly. As always, appreciative of you, your time, and your ears. Until next time, stay connected.